Good morning, ladies and gents. Welcome to day 35 and happy Monday to you all. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new week. Let's fucking go. And this episode in the series is as much as it is for me as it is for you. Because today we're talking about the inner bitch, the child within all of us, and the fact that life is not fair. What we're also going to talk about is levels of consciousness. We're going to go a little bit deep. We're going to go a bit spiritual today. And I used to be incredibly guilty of this. I used to be incredibly guilty of having a very low level of consciousness. And I think a lot of people, I would guess at least 50%, are walking around with a very low level of consciousness where we are stuck in victimhood, effectively. We blame external environments, we blame other people, and we think that life is happening to us, that we are unlucky and that things are not fair and that somehow, somewhere, someone owes us something. And the reality is no one does. You are exactly where you are meant to be. You are the sum of the actions, the habits, and more importantly, the choices that you have made that have led you to this point. Now, of course, there are some situations that are unlucky. People, for example, being born disabled with mental health issues, shall we say. I'm trying to use the right language here because I don't want to offend anybody or insult anybody. And I know people can put particular labels on words and then get offended if they say the wrong one. So if I have, I don't mean to. But people can be born with disabilities. People can be born with autoimmune diseases. Type 1 diabetes is a good example of that. And that's not their choice. So for that, I'm not talking to them. And obviously I can empathize with that as much as possible, being fortunate that I don't suffer from any of those inflictions. However, what's interesting is that if you speak to or see anybody who has got one of these afflictions, type 1 diabetes, or they've been disabled, war veterans is a great example of this. Those people seem to have more mental resilience than someone who's been born with all the privileges of good health and all their limbs and all of this sort of stuff. Yeah, my little cousin's a great example. She's, I believe now 5 years old, type 1 diabetic. She's an absolute fucking champion. She's a warrior. And she didn't choose to be born with that. She's a little kid, right? But the strength that she shows is so bloody inspirational. It's insane. She has, and I look at her and I see her from a distance and I'm like, wow, she is going far in life. Because to have tackled all of the stuff that she has done at such a young age, to have that level of resilience by the time she is 15, 16, and she's, going out into the world. I mean, God knows what the world looks like when she's 15 or 16, but when she's going out into the world and doing her own thing as a young woman, she's just gonna knock down barriers for fun. She's going to the top of something. And that's just one example. I remember in the gym I used to train at, there was a guy who came in for a long time and he was always doing upper body, but when you hear why, you'll understand. He came in and he had one of those cages around his, I can't put my leg up, but he had one of those cages around his leg. So he'd clearly been in a horrific accident and his leg had obviously been shattered to pieces. To the, those cages where they have to basically put all those pins in to basically hold your bones together whilst they refuse. He had one of those. And it was insanely inspirational to see him come in despite that and still hit the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. And he'd just do his thing. He wasn't making any excuses. He was just getting on with it. And I think that's kind of like what I want to talk about today a little bit, because life isn't fair. It's not. And guess what? It's never going to be. And whether you're a man or a woman, we all suffer from different things. Life isn't fair for men in the sense that we're born with no value and we have to earn it. Life isn't fair for women in the sense that there is discrimination against them, that they're not necessarily afforded some of the same advantages that men are, and that they are constantly having to have their head on a swivel because at any point they could be attacked by some crazy sex predator man. So life isn't fair for anybody, but it's very easy to be in that mentality, whether you're a man or you're a woman, and be like, life isn't fair, it's happening to me. But I can absolutely assure you, if you're in that spot, and the reason I'm doing this video is because that mentality isn't going to serve you. It's just going to hold you back. And effectively, it's just a form of self-sabotage. And I'm also doing this video, like I said right at the beginning, because I used to be so guilty of this. And I look back on it now and I can laugh at it, but I also get pissed off at myself because I'm like, how much time and energy did I waste having that mentality? It's insane. Like the amount of time that I would be like huffing and puffing and be like, this isn't fair, this has happened to me. When the reality was, the reason I was getting so angry was because I knew I had made the wrong decisions. I knew I had gone for the short-term hedonic rewards rather than the sort of delayed gratification of the long-term gain. And we're always looking for external validation. We're always looking for that next excuse, that next reason. But I promise you, in 99% of cases, what is happening to you right now is the sum of the decisions and actions and choices that you have made in the past. I promise you, you are exactly where you are meant to be. Whether that makes sense to you or not right now, take solace and take peace in that, because what you can control is the decisions that you make today, the choices that you make today. There is no point looking back and thinking, oh, bloody hell, and stewing and getting annoyed at it, because you can't affect what's happened in the past. You can only affect what's happening in the present. You can't even really affect the future because you don't know what's going to happen. You might get hit by a bus tomorrow, God forbid, hopefully you don't, but you just never know. So all you can do is live in the present, right? But this idea that you think you're unlucky or that things are happening to you is a very low level of consciousness that I want you to try and be aware of if you think you are in that place. And like I say, this isn't me looking down. This is me saying this as a reminder to me, because I think we all have this inner bitch, this inner child voice. You know, when things get a little bit tough, you know, when you're having like a stressful day and you've got to get shit done, and you're trying to do a million things at once, and then like, I don't know, you hit your head on a cabinet or something like that, or what did I do the other day? Oh, you can't see it, but above you, there's an extractor fan for my oven, and I smashed my head on it, and I was already in a rush, and I was stressful day, and just for 5 seconds, the inner child inside of me was like, cancel everything today. You just need to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix. You deserve it. Yeah, life's hard. Life's not fair. And I vividly remember, this is just the latest example, but I vividly remember it. And I'm glad I'm doing this video today to talk about it, because it was about 5, maybe 10 seconds. And then I just took a step and I was like, I just laughed, because I was like, wow, like it's still there. Like that inner bitch, that little inner child voice who wants us to almost run to mummy and be like, Mom, it's not fair. That person did that. It's in all of us. And part of being an adult, I guess, and part of being a good adult, a successful adult, is being able to control that inner voice, being able to sort of look at it introspectively and to laugh at it and be like, huh, okay, cool, good one. Well, I'm going to crack on with the rest of my life now because this shit happens. Do you know what I mean? And that's just one example, like I say, but we all have this child in us. It's hardwired, and you're not trying to remove it. You're just trying to be aware of it. And I think being aware of it is a huge first step. And then also being aware of your level of consciousness. Like actually taking some time after you've watched this video or listened to this podcast and thinking like, am I a victim? Do I blame other people? Like, do I feel like life is happening to me? What language do you use? I had this conversation with a guy last week, and he was saying things, and it's very subconscious. And he was saying things to me like, oh, well, this is hard because I'm not a morning person, or I find this difficult because of this. And what's basically happening there is you're tying your circumstances to your identity. So you're saying that things are hard because you identify as X, Y, or Z. And I'm not talking about fucking genders or sexualities here. This is all that's all irrelevant to this. I'm talking about we label ourselves with problems or with types. Oh, I'm an introvert, so I can't do that. Oh, I'm a morning person, so I can't stay up late in the evening. Yeah, those are just two very common examples that you hear. Or, oh, I'm more of a runner, these are identities that we put on ourselves. But then we complain about the situation that we're in. And it's like, okay, well, that's because you identify as that person. So consciousness and identity are very closely linked, I believe. And I think if you want to figure out your level of consciousness, think about your identity, because I think that's potentially going to help you massively. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I don't want to go too far in depth in it. I'm not an expert on the sort of, levels of consciousness. If you want, I strongly encourage you to Google that sort of stuff and check that stuff out. It's a very interesting topic. It's one I've become more familiar with in the last year and a half, 2 years, is that sort of spiritual side of it. And I don't buy in completely to it and get into the horoscopes and the fucking shades of the moon and all this shit. But I do believe there's a lot in there around sort of identity, around levels of consciousness and stuff like that. But I think just know that the world is not fair, and it's never going to be fair. In fact, it's brutally unfair. But if you see it as unfair, if you allow yourself to fall into this victim mentality, just know that that is not going to serve you, it's going to hinder you. It's going to hold you back. And the only person who can change that mentality and change that perspective is you. So I hope you take that well. I hope that serves you well. And I hope you apply that and have an actual think about it. Take 5 minutes after watching this or listening to this to think, where am I on this sort of spectrum? Do I blame myself? How big is my inner bitch? Is he or she coming out every single day? And he probably is. Mine does. And that's absolutely fine. But it's how quickly can you catch him or her? How quickly can you put them back in the box and be like, nope, fuck off, I'm getting on with my life. Cool. I love you and leave you there, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.